Go to Space, Blue Sky Learning, episode 142, Raptors in Space. Today, Kevin and I meet with the TERP Raptor team at the University of Maryland, who are leading an ambitious mission. What started as a class project has rapidly grown into a multi-institutional collaboration, bringing together researchers from UMD, the Naval Research Laboratory, and the University of Alaska Fairbanks to design and launch a 12U CubeSat for a high-speed flyby of the asteroid Apophis. Their goal? To imagine Apophis, analyze its surface, and send groundbreaking data back to Earth. Guided by aerospace engineering professor Brent Barbee, the UMD team includes Adrienne, Kruti, Chinthan, Sean, Rahul, Ryan, and Cameron, who I hope will forgive me if I butchered their names. But they are a diverse group of master's and PhD students, and their expertise spans orbital determination, machine learning, radio communications, and structures and mechanical modeling, as well as the fact that their prior experience includes work at NASA, Naval Research Laboratory, the FDA, Exo Analytic Solutions, and a UMD's balloon payload program. We are excited to learn more about how their student-led initiative evolved into a full-scale space mission, and we know you will be just as inspired as we are by this amazing team. Welcome, TERP Raptor team. We are so excited to touch base with you today. Thank you, first of all, for spending some time on your weekend and for everybody getting together to talk with us. So before we, kind of get into what you all are doing, why don't you introduce yourselves to us?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having us. My name is Brent Barbee, and I'm a professor in the Aerospace Engineering Department here at the University of Maryland, working with this fine team here that's gathered around me. And now it's time for them to introduce themselves. Maybe we can start here and work our way around.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Rudolph. I'm a PhD student in aerospace engineering, and I primarily work on the science and instrumentation for the TERP Raptor team.
Hi, I'm Cameron Story. I'm a master's student at the University of Maryland, and I primarily work on the thermal subsystem.
My name is Sean Phillips, also a master's student at the University of Maryland in aerospace engineering. And I've been working on radiation protection as well as MMOD protection.
My name is Chinthan Prasad. I'm also a master's student at the University of Maryland, and I'm in charge of the power, propulsion, and ADCS teams.
Fantastic. So let's start with the simple thing. What does the satellite that you're building, what's it called? And we know you're the TERP Raptors. Is it RaptorSat? And we'd like to know, what is your mission? And tell us about your satellite.
All right. So TERP Raptor is the name of the mission and the spacecraft. The Terrapins are our school mascot here at University of Maryland. So the shortened version TERP is used for a lot of things associated with the university. The TERP part of the acronym stands for Terrapin Engineered Rideshare Probe. And then the Raptor part has something to do with reconnaissance of the asteroid Apophis for profiling, tracking, observation, and characterization. That's all built into the Raptor part of the acronym.
Okay, fantastic. Where is your target? Where's this target planetary object that you're looking for our listeners? Where are you trying to send your satellite, and what's the length of its journey and the time of its journey?
Good questions. So what we'll do as we go through this is we'll sort of pass this around. So Chinthan, how would you characterize where we're sending the
Sure.
space?
So there's actually a near-Earth object called Apophis, which is actually an asteroid that's planning on making a close approach with the Earth in April of 2029. So the goal of our mission is basically to be able to send this probe up to perform some science instrumentation, take some images of the asteroid to then be used as kind of a supplement to some of the other missions that are planning to go up. There's a few missions by NASA, the OSIRIS Apex mission, as well as some missions that are currently in development by ESA, which is the European Space Agency, to try and send a probe up to conduct some science and learn more about some of these celestial objects that are within our close vicinity.
Fantastic. And so if it's a near Earth object, does that mean you'll be able to use solar panels and batteries versus, say, some sort of radioactive EPS?
Correct. So the design of our spacecraft is meant to rely primarily on solar panels and batteries. We're going to be within the Earth's sphere of influence for most of this mission. This is actually going to be happening in a modified GTO, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
So we do.
I'm sorry, you have to explain any abbreviation you use because, as you know, engineers, the world doesn't speak with acronyms. The military does, but not the regular world. What is GTO? Is it Chinthan? What's GTO?
GTO is like a geosynchronous transfer orbit. So they primarily they classify these different orbits based on basically how far you are away from the Earth. This is a particular classification of orbit that we came across during our kind of orbital trajectory design and optimization. We found that this type of orbit would allow us the best chance of flying by this asteroid during its close approach with the Earth.
So I was noticing in the intro so that you're going to be sending some data back. And so the flyby is going to allow you to kind of take some images as well. But can you explain for our audience too, like what exactly you're expecting to kind of the data that you're expecting to gather?
So in the images, we're hoping to look at surface weathering effects, so craters on the asteroid, evidence of any like boulder displacement. What else?
Regolith overturning.
Regolith overturning, any evidence of surface weathering or gravitational effects. So one of the biggest things is that Apophis is going to be coming really, really close past Earth, and the effect that Earth will have on Apophis from its gravity could potentially change a lot of things about its structure or its orbit. And so we're hoping to capture those effects over time in our images,
Right.
and show them to the world. And as Chinthan said earlier, to help supplement missions that are going to be going to Apophis after its closest approach.
Very cool. If I recall right, astronomers love asteroids because they're snapshots of the early solar system, right? We think of them as sort of like time capsules of what was going on when our solar system was created. I presume that too. Is it true that this asteroid, it's probably not geologically active on its own, right? Only when it passes by or some kind of gravity field? Or do you think that maybe other things crash into it? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, those are interesting questions. Certainly, asteroids are not active in the way that comets are. In fact, that's the primary way that we discriminate between asteroids and comets. Comets have all the frozen volatiles inside them that then outgas when the comet gets closer to the sun. It gives it that distinctive tail. But one of the interesting findings from the OSIRIS-REx mission, the asteroid Bennu, is that quite unexpectedly, Bennu was ejecting small particles of matter from its surface. And these were, impossible to see from any distance. But when the spacecraft was up close to Bennu, its cameras serendipitously noticed this. And so that was one of the big findings from the mission. Bennu was referred to as a so-called active asteroid in consequence of this particle ejection. Now, the mechanism for it is still not fully understood. We still don't know exactly what causes Bennu to be an active asteroid. So it's an open question as to whether Apophis might be an active asteroid too. And so any mission that visits Apophis will be hoping to serendipitously capture any evidence or lack of evidence of this spontaneous particle ejection from the surface.
Fantastic. Some of our listeners know a little bit about, the subsystems of a CubeSat. Let me ask Cameron. Cameron, you said you were working with thermal systems. Tell an audience, a general audience, why are you so concerned, or why the concern for thermal regulation or thermal control on your spacecraft?
So the thing about a lot of the instrumentation on the spacecraft, especially like the cameras per se, is that they have ideal operating temperatures. So if you start to stray outside the ideal operating temperatures, you might get a fuzzier image. And if you go even further outside, the camera just might not work. So you need to regulate the temperatures to keep basically everything on the CubeSat itself working properly. And you do that through, usually with CubeSats, a combination of coverings, radiators, maybe a heater if you need one as well.
Right. We have very modest CubeSats compared to the one you're building. So we do a barbecue roll. We use a magnet and let the Earth's magnetic field let us sort of gently tumble. But what is the size of your spacecraft, and what kind of temperature are you trying to maintain for your camera?
So it is a 12U CubeSat. And I don't remember the ideal operating temperature precisely off the top of my head, but it's like I think tens of degrees of Celsius, so like 10, 20 degrees Celsius-ish.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Very cool. Let me go for our radio audience or our podcast audience. We have 4 students and the professor, so I want to make sure that I hear from each student about their subsystem. Sean, could you describe the radiation issues that you might experience, what effect they would have on TERP, your Raptor sat, and how you're going to mitigate those?
Yeah, so flying in space, you're subject to a lot of radiation, and so what we're looking at protecting is primarily the total ionizing dosage, as well as single event effects. So total ionizing dosage are over longer periods of time, and so something like our radiation protection, our 4mm shielding that we're looking at incorporating, is able to reduce that overall dosage, and allow for the components to last much longer in our orbit. And then things like the single event effects are things that could cause memory flips or bit flips, and cause errors to different things that we're storing in memory or transferring data back and forth. So trying to avoid any corruption of our data, and keeping the components safe for as long as possible.
Very cool.
Well, Kevin, when you're done with everybody's gotten a chance to speak about their subsystems, right? So I want to pivot a little bit too, thinking about the fact that I know that you had mentioned that you're a diverse group of students. So let's get a little background on, okay, University of Maryland, how did this program start? How did the team come together? I know you have different backgrounds, like even as far as places where you've worked before. So let's talk a little bit about how this team is coalesced.
Sure. I'll turn it over to the students in a minute, but just to answer the first part of your question, this started off as a class project in one of the classes that I teach last semester. It's a graduate course about near-Earth object exploration, and it's a mission design-oriented course. And so students will form teams and then spend the semester designing a mission to an asteroid or a comet. And this idea of sending a CubeSat in Earth orbit to visit Apophis when it makes its historic flyby was a topic that I put forward as one that the students could elect to spend the semester on. And then this group of students decided they want to come together and spend the semester working on the project. So that's some background on how that started. But as far as the students' backgrounds, they'll have to tell you that for themselves. So why don't we start here and then work our way around?
Sure. So I actually did my undergrad as well at the University of Maryland in aerospace engineering, and I decided to continue my studies here at the University of Maryland for my master's. I think, kind of the aerospace realm in general was something that I was very interested from a very young age. Being in the Maryland, DC, Virginia area, we have ready access to the Air and Space Museum. I remember having, relatives and people coming from out of state. That would be like the first stop that we would take them when they come into the area. So that kind of helped to foster this interest in aerospace. And projects like this and other clubs really allow me to, further that interest and make a lasting impact.
So this is Chinthan speaking. Did you attend Thomas Jefferson High School in Northern Virginia?
I did not. I'm actually from Maryland. I'm in Howard County, Maryland. I attended Mount Hebron High School. Did
you visit Goddard much when you were a young student?
Unfortunately, I haven't actually had the chance to visit Goddard yet, but hopefully that's something that we can set up in the coming days, since we are going to be working closely with, people.
All right. Very good. When you're introducing or giving us your background, remind the audience who's speaking, just so we can separate our team members.
All right. Well, for the audience, I'm Sean again, and yeah, similar story to Chinthan, obviously went here for undergrad as well as, continuing studies for my master's. And I think what really got me into aerospace was I had a couple of family members that were aerospace engineers. And so just, the fascination of space continued to grow as I grew up. And so coming to, University of Maryland for this, graduate degree, I thought I'd take this class. It seemed very interesting, and, it kind of unfolded into now a really cool project that we're all part of.
All right. Sean, what Shauna and I find is that when you have parents or family members, or you have role models in your early life, it makes it so much easier to do just as you have, right? You saw engineers growing up, so the pathway was pretty clear that you could take. What we find is kids that are, coming from different kinds of backgrounds, maybe they don't have the same kind of family and certain careers. That's some of the kids that we're really trying to help, because we're hoping kids like you, younger adults, you are going to help us be role models for, high school and middle school kids. So thank you for sharing.
This is Cameron speaking, and I also did my undergrad here at the University of Maryland, continued for my master's. As for aerospace engineering, I've always been pretty good at math and just enjoyed engineering in general since 7th, 8th grade. And I've just also been interested in space for almost as long as I can remember. And aerospace engineering just like seemed to narrowly be the nice combination of those two things. So I was like, let's do it. I've been doing aerospace engineering ever since. I've also been doing some fun high altitude ballooning as well through one of the clubs on campus, which is I had a lot of fun doing as well.
That is a super way to attract kids into the program. Very visual, right? Very hands-on.
Actually, I'm sure Kevin will tell you that's exactly what he does with the youngest of ours. I mean, we're working with middle and high school kids, and some of our kids have gone off to university but still come back and mentor. And it's the high altitude balloons we could do. Even kindergartners would come out and get so excited about watching that. So it really is a great education.
Gone out to like elementary schools to launch balloons for them, and they've always been so excited to see it.
Yeah, it's a gateway drug. The HAB is the gateway drug to building spacecraft, right? So, okay, and that brings us to Adrienne.
Hi everyone, Adrienne here. Let's see where to start. So I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere, Indiana, called Boonville. Shout out to my Boonville pioneers. Went there for high school. I went to Purdue for my undergraduate in aerospace. I came to Maryland originally for an internship and then fell in love with the area. So I decided to go to UMD for grad school. Now I'm working on my PhD. I originally fell in love with space just from being outside at home, because when you live in the middle of nowhere, you typically have pretty dark skies. So I grew up looking at all the stars and the planets, and then pretty much my whole family was in 4-H, and they really started to grow in STEM over the years. And so that got me more excited, and I was able to exchange that excitement with younger people who I was able to mentor. So that just continued to blossom, and now I'm here on this amazing team, hopefully doing something for real this time.
Very cool. Do you know where Gas City, Indiana is? And
Gas
Taylor
City.
University and Upland?
I do not. I'm
It's
from Southern
halfway,
Indiana.
yeah, it's halfway between Fort Wayne and Indianapolis on I-69.
Okay.
That's where the company is, near space launch and near space education, that I bought every one of the, the hardware for the balloons, our buses for our satellites, little two professors spun up. And when you say the middle of nowhere, I have been there. It's a town of 2,000, right?
So, I mean, is that
Now-
why it's called Gas City, Kevin? Like, is it the only place to get gas? Because the
No,
way you
that's the
describe
exit
it
on the
literally is-
highway.
I mean, it seems
No.
so small.
Yeah, it's the exit on the highway. That the place is actually 3 miles away from that. So yeah, but Indiana, I can tell you, Purdue is a wonderful school, but Indiana struggles because a lot of their really brightest and best, they leave the state, and so they're really, because they, so many of the good paying jobs and the good careers are technical. States like Indiana are trying to find ways to keep their best and brightest from, sort of doing what you're doing, which is finding the best opportunities you can. So cool.
I always thought it'd be neat to bring some kind of aerospace manufacturing to Indiana, especially we do a lot of that around Indy.
So this company I work with, they're building their first assembly lines. They were very boutique. They've built over 100 satellites on orbit, but now they have to go to an assembly line because they can't keep up with the orders. So when you get your doctorate and you're ready to, if you want to go back there, I could hook you up with some meetings maybe. So thank you. I want to pivot real quickly before we keep talking about the people that are your team. I want to just ask one question. When did you finalize and say, okay, now we're definitely going to space? And two, how did you fund this? Because a lot of us that work with small sats, if we're not, a major prime defense or a big company, funding satellites is difficult, especially one as large as yours. Do you have a history of building satellites, or is this something new that you're all doing? And that, how did you find the funds for it?
So this is something new for our team. And what we're doing right now for the current year is working with the Maryland Space Grant Consortium to get a relatively modest amount of support that will allow us to do a couple of things. One is to flesh out some key areas of the design, but also to generate some more detailed proposals that we will submit for larger amounts of funding later in the year. Now, the challenge for a mission like this is exactly where to send the proposals. So we're well aware that we're breaking some new ground in that regard. And so we have a number of different avenues we're pursuing. And maybe once we get later in the year and we've had a chance to run some of those to ground, we can give you all an update. But you're quite right to point out that funding a 12U CubeSat for university is certainly a challenge.
Right.
What makes this project unique in that regard is that we have a very, very special, very unique place that we're trying to go, which is the asteroid Apophis. And so we're hopeful that the magnitude and the historic nature of that event is going to help us break some new ground in terms of what's possible for a university-led mission.
Yes. A great place to showcase your work would be the Small Set Education Conference down in Florida in October, which I think I've told you we would be thrilled to have you come and exhibit, and you can bring as many of your team members as you'd like, but this would be a great way to maybe get a little traction, maybe meet some of the Space Force folks and the companies that are there. And, that would be a great way that we could help you, maybe introduce you to the people that are at our conference. So.
Sure, that'd be fantastic.
Excellent. At present, as part of your Raptor team, are you doing outreach with younger students, high school or middle school? Is that part of your process, or is that something that I know that I believe it was Cameron, you had mentioned that HABs, is that part of the program?
Well, the high altitude ballooning is something else I just do on the side with a different group on campus.
Okay.
I think we do tons of outreach through the high altitude ballooning club, but I don't think we do any outreach.
Yeah, we haven't made any specific outreach plans yet, but that's certainly something that we could do.
Okay. If you had to today say this is our optimal best ride, whose rocket are you thinking might get you to where you need to be?
Well, that's a great question. So Chinthan was talking about the geosynchronous transfer orbit as being an orbit that we could operate from. We also have a contingency plan for the mission that would allow us to operate from an equatorial geosynchronous orbit. So higher up, the place that a GTO is trying to get a satellite to. So any of the Falcon or the forthcoming Vulcan Centaur rockets would be suitable. Blue Origin's rockets would work too. We're really pretty flexible in terms of rocket as long as it's headed either to GTO or GEO.
That's always the correct answer, isn't it? When you're short on money, is we'll take any ride you'll give us.
Right, the only one. Before we get to the culminating question for today, I noted that you mentioned obviously raising the funds can be a challenge, but I would think with a project of this magnitude and it being the first time that you've undertaken it, what are some of the other challenges that you've had to face and, or any that you're expecting coming that maybe a fledgling team who might be listening in could learn from?
Any thoughts on that question? Anybody?
Well, obviously the funding is going to be an issue, but I think one of the things that we're going to be trying to work through over the next couple of months is, transitioning from this once being, something that we did as a project for our class, and trying to transition this, outside of the classroom more, and, just be able to, work together as a team while we all are, living our busy lives and doing other things. I mean, a lot of us are also taking, other classes as well, as maybe working jobs. So, trying to get that time management to, continue putting all that effort into this project is going to be huge.
Awesome. My last question is this: if we could go quickly around the room with the students, 5 years from now, or when you're done with school, if you could say, what's my ideal first job I'd like to go to, realistically, what do you guys think would be your first employer when you're done at the University of Maryland?
Chinthan, you want to start us off?
That's a tough question.
Come on, you know what you want to say, just say it.
We already have an employer.
I think a lot of people in the aerospace field would eventually, I mean, me personally at least, I would like to end up at NASA at some point. I think they
Okay.
do a lot of, there you go.
Yeah.
They do a lot of great work. And it's such a large, kind of family that they work on so many different problems that I think I could definitely find a fit somewhere in there.
Thank you.
Yeah, like Chinthan, I think, growing up, most kids that are into aerospace are, the goal is NASA. So I think that'd be very cool. I'd like to continue working on, stuff similar to this where, it's a design problem, and you're trying to design a mission. I think it's very interesting and very multifaceted. There's a lot of things you got to take into account, and I think it's really fun to kind of do those sort of things.
At least for me, I would love to keep doing the ballooning that I've mentioned a couple of times now. And if I could, at NASA would be great, but unfortunately, with the hiring freeze, that might not be an option. But anywhere else would be fine as well.
Right.
Oh, yeah, so sorry. Go.
No, you're good.
I'll save it for later. I'll save it.
Okay. So I've dabbled a little bit in the defense sector already, so I think it's going to be between the commercial world and NASA. As much as I absolutely love NASA, I also really enjoy being very much on the forefront of brand new and exciting technologies. And I know that sometimes in the commercial world, just objectively speaking, they can move a little bit faster. So I'm not sure yet, but to be determined.
Right. I predict at least two of you in 10 years will be part of a startup, if not the founder.
There you go. Well, we are to that time where it is the last question. Of course, really, you're such an inspiration. Our listeners, as I think I mentioned, we're talking the youngest, right? And who may have some idea of what they're thinking to do in the future. And I often joke about the fact that, like, most people assume when they hear like aerospace engineer that, oh, that means, oh, everybody's an astronaut. They have no idea all the different parts and components that can actually take, into account what it means to be an aerospace engineer. So for our students who may be listening in and those who may even be high school or college, what is some advice that you can give them maybe in finding their niche in this field or just about making it through? Because I know aerospace can be a particularly challenging field.
I think I'll take this one if you guys are okay with that. So this is something that I actually had a problem with, and I'll answer your question in kind of a roundabout way. So again, I grew up in the middle of nowhere. So going to an engineering school and then coming to DC and getting involved in this and really learning about what aerospace meant to me and what I really was interested in, it took a lot of asking questions. It took a lot of, every time an opportunity came up, I just said yes to it. I didn't care what it was, how relevant it was, how much I already knew about it. Take it. Just go for it. You'll be amazed at what you learn from it. Maybe you get nothing from it, and that is a result too, and that is okay. That tells you I don't need to go in this direction. I can try something else, and that is just as exciting. So I think for everybody listening, seek out opportunity and say yes to everything that comes your way.
That's what we preach, fail fast, fail often, learn from your mistakes. I also believe we should always fail at the highest possible level. What you guys have said, and I see some heads nodding too. Would you guys concur that aerospace engineering is basically learning how to recover after failing? Okay, every head is, yeah, that's engineering, right?
Yeah.
What do you do after you fail? Because you're just going to fail, right? And you just keep going, keep going. So this is wonderful. Adrienne, your advice, spot on. I really enjoyed our time with you. I am putting pressure on you a little bit to come to the conference. I'm just reminding you gently that we have a table waiting for you.
At NASA.
At Kennedy Space
At
Center.
NASA.
At Kennedy Space Center in October. It would be so great because we want our kids to meet you in person so they can have little conversations with you, right? The mentoring and modeling that you can do for 14 to 18-year-olds is much more effective, frankly, than she and I, when Shauna and I just say, this is what you should do, it would mean a lot more coming from you. So keep that in mind in your circles as you guys are growing as well.
They get to get into NASA for free, right? Or Kennedy Space Center, I mean, they get to get into.
Yes, our conference is inside the park, so you are in for free. And
There, don't worry, we'll be there.
I love it. I really enjoyed meeting you briefly in Orlando, and I think we should do a follow-up, down the road. We should do another interview and get an update as your mission progresses, because 12U is an enormous accomplishment first time out of the gate, right?
Well, Kevin, I think you should also consider maybe having them pop into the Wolf Pack if any one of them are available, or the whole team. I think it would
I
be.
think that would, if we could get the 5 of you for, say, 40 minutes one night, I can do a breakout room on each subsystem, and I can have the kids either pick a room or maybe rotate them. We can speed date with CubeSat subsystems, and I don't know if life gets much cooler than that. So,
Well, now that we've put it out there in the airways, it's going to have to happen.
yeah,
because
I'm sorry, now it has to happen.
Sorry.
So,
but I'm sure
yeah.
we'll set that up. All right. Well,
Sure.
thank you so much for meeting with us today, and it sounds like we're going to be hearing from you soon. So thanks again.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everyone.
And thank you guys for your time. You were great.